Welcome back to the county seat. So far today, we have talked about roads and the issue of sovereignty. Are they federally owned? Are they state-owned? And how to solve the problem without going to court. We're going to continue that question of sovereignty by asking the question, is the fact that the federal government owns land in the state of Utah enough evidence to give them sovereign right over how the land is managed, taxed, and used? Or is that still a state right? Well, here with that story is Susan Wood.
Thanks, Chad. When you own land, you can pretty well do what you want with it, right? You can build a house, you can plant a tree or a pretty garden. You can even opt to sell that property and earn a little extra cash. Now imagine that 90% of it was actually owned by the federal government, and you couldn't do anything with it. You couldn't play, you couldn't build, you couldn't plant. That may sound far-fetched, but that's exactly what some of Utah counties are dealing with on a daily basis.
You get south of I-70, or you get over into Uinta County, or you get along the West Desert, you're talking huge percentages of county property being federal lands.
Because San Juan County has 5 million acres of property inside the county boundaries, and only 40,000 of those acres are private property, to supply the services to visitors to this county and to residents of this county, the property taxes are the highest in the state of Utah on the citizens of San Juan County, because we don't generate enough taxes on the federal properties to offset what is needed to provide the services.
So we have some beautiful lands that are, they're tied up in the National Forest Service and many more lands in the BLM. We don't have any economic activity off of those lands, and it limits our growth and our opportunities in economic activity and population growth.
When the western United States was originally being settled, the federal government's plan was to eventually sell off the land to private owners. That changed due to a number of factors, and instead of disposal of the land, the plan changed to retention of those areas with the Federal Lands Policy Management Act of 1976.
In effect, FLPMA said, we're going to quit disposing of these lands, but we promise not to manage these lands in a way that would be contrary to the management issues and policies of states and local governments. That was the consistency requirement. You own your house, yet your house is subject to planning and zoning requirements of a city or a county where you live. Well, in the same sense, federal lands are like any other lands.
Instead of paying property taxes like other landowners, the federal government pays what are known as PILT funds, or payment in lieu of taxes. These funds are meant to help offset the money not being collected in regular property taxes. Those payments aren't always consistent, however.
The feds figured out a formula, but they never fully funded that formula. It's like, well, it's whatever scraps we decide to give you under this formula, but then they never meet their formula. So it's basically totally at the will and the whim of the federal government. Basically, the counties that get hardest hit are the ones with the widest expanse and the smallest amount of population.
Another concern, the shifting management policies coming from one Washington administration to the next.
We try to work with the BLM as best we can. We know that they get orders from Washington, they get orders from senators back east. A lot of times those conflict with what the local people are trying to do because there is so much public land.
One of the things that I think is really disturbing to us is that management decisions aren't being made at a local level. I think with any level of government or any level of decision making in a business or in a community, that the best decisions are going to be made by looking at the lowest level of government to make those decisions. And so we want to have more cooperation and more coordination with our local citizens in federal land planning issues.
Still, not all counties see their public land as an economic disadvantage.
Speaking for Grand County, in our case, the federal lands have been very good for us and very good for our economy, and that's what we're surviving on right now. So I would have a hard time with any change in that, although I'm up for change as long as there's a lot of talk about it.
Even so, counties with a higher percentage of federal land tend to have higher property taxes to offset service cost, putting a heavier burden on their citizenry. Property has always been a part of the American dream, the ability to have a place that is just yours, where you can live and grow. Utah counties want that same thing for their individual taxpayers and businesses. But when you are a little more than an island in a sea of federal land, that opportunity is far more difficult to grab a hold of.
So much of our county is controlled by federal and state agencies now. What is left is what we have jurisdiction over. That is amazing that 80% of our county is not in private hands. And we're losing very quickly the access or the ability to use those for economic or multiple use, or in some cases even recreational, other than if you want to hike in or ride a horse. No mechanized travel. And it just seems to me that we need to stop that process and if possible reverse it.
For the county seat, I'm Susan Wood. Back to you, Chad.
Thank you, Susan, for that report. We are going to continue the conversation about federal lands and state sovereignty. And with us will be a special guest for our roundtable, Senator Mike Lee from the state of Utah, who's also a constitutional expert. And we'll get his opinion on this subject when we come back with the county seat. Won't you come and play?
Zion National Park is TripAdvisor's best national park. And St. George, Utah was named the #1 travel hotspot. If you haven't planned your St. George or Zion getaway yet, visit atozion.com and find out why everyone else is already packing. Won't you come and play? St. George, Utah. Everything from A to Zion.
Native Americans called it the land of the sleeping rainbow. It's a place of unparalleled enchantment where history, splendor, and industry meet. We call it Sevier County. Experience the Paiute Trail by ATV. Explore 7 national parks, all within a few hours' drive. Gaze down at the world from an entirely new perspective. Join us in Sevier County and discover real Utah. Come, explore the Paiute Trail and beyond.
In order for there to be adventure, there must first be a land that offers it. In order for there to be discovery, there must first be something undiscovered. It's time you discovered northeastern Utah's dinosaur lands, the trails, water, beauty, and history that have been 65 million years in the making. Take your journey to a destination where adventure is only limited by your imagination. Join us in Uinta County, Undiscovered Utah.